I'd never believed in skinwalkers, not really. I thought they were just stories, dark folklore meant to scare kids off from wandering too far into the desert. That changed the week I agreed to house sit for my friend Casey on her family's ranch in northern Arizona, just outside of Tuba City. She had to leave town suddenly, and I needed quiet for my thesis. It was supposed to be perfect, isolated, peaceful, good internet. But the first thing I noticed when I got there was how empty the land felt. Not quiet, but hollow. Like the silence wasn't just absence of sound, but something deeper. Watching, waiting. Her ranch sat on over 200 acres of Navajo land, but it had that abandoned look. Fences with gaps, rusted windmill, and a house that hadn't been painted in years. Casey's note said the animals had been moved to a neighbor's place, so the barn was empty. Or at least it should have been. The first night was uneventful. Cold desert wind, long shadows, and the usual creaks of a wooden house settling. But on the second night, just past 2 a.m., I heard something outside. Not footsteps exactly, but a sort of dragging sound, like claws across dirt. I looked through the blinds, expecting a coyote, but I saw something I still can't explain. It looked like a man on all fours, long limbs, distorted joints, skin too tight across its back. It was sniffing the porch. I thought maybe it was a dog. A sick dog. I tapped the glass. The thing stopped and looked at me, but it didn't stand up, just twisted its neck unnaturally, eyes reflecting red in the porch light. Then it made this low guttural sound and sprinted off into the darkness. I barely slept. Next morning I checked for tracks, but the wind had wiped everything clean. I tried calling Casey. No signal. That evening, the land seemed quieter than before. No birds, no wind, just stillness. Around midnight, I heard something again, this time inside the barn. I grabbed a flashlight and went out, barefoot in the gravel. As I approached, I could see the doors moving slightly, but there was no wind. I whispered, "Hello?" The movement stopped. My flashlight flickered. Then something inside mimicked my voice back to me. Same tone, same pitch, but slightly off, like a recording that had been played too many times. I bolted back to the house, locked every door, stayed up all night, and then, around 4 a.m., came the knock. 3 soft taps on the front door, then silence, then 3 more, louder. I crept to the peephole. No one. But just as I was about to turn away, a face leaned into the glass. Not human. Not really. It had eyes, but no emotion. Lips that moved like they were learning to speak. It whispered, "Let me in, Casey. I'm cold." My blood froze. That wasn't my name. That thing knew whose house it was. Next morning, I tried to leave. Car wouldn't start. I packed my bag and hiked toward the main road. About a mile out, I saw something strange. A coyote standing upright, watching me from a ridge. Then another. And another. They didn't move like animals. They stood too still, too upright. I turned around and walked faster. When I looked back, they were gone. I reached a neighbor's house by dusk. An old Navajo man opened the door and stared at me like he already knew. I barely got out the words, something was outside the house, when he raised his hand and said, "Don't speak its name, don't look for it, and whatever you do, don't go back." I stayed at his place until Casey returned. She didn't laugh when I told her what happened. She got quiet. Told me her grandmother used to say that once the skinwalker knows your scent, it never really forgets. It just waits, hides, pretends. She handed me a pouch of ash and said, "Keep this near your doors. Never speak to anything that sounds like me, unless you see me." It's been months. I moved back to the city, but every once in a while, I'll hear tapping late at night. And sometimes, when I answer the phone, I hear my voice on the other end, asking to be let in. Moral lesson. Not all legends are myths. Some wear your voice, your face, your name, and they only need you to believe for a moment to get inside. I used to volunteer for trail maintenance up in the Kaibab National Forest, and I thought I knew the land well enough to not be scared of it. I spent entire weekends alone up there, fixing markers, checking paths, cleaning out old campsites. It was peaceful. Until the fall of last year. One weekend, the Park Service asked me to check on an old ranger outpost deep in the backcountry that hadn't been used in years. No one had gone up there since a series of landslides damaged the path. I agreed, thinking it would just be another solo hike. I took my gear, extra food, and enough water for 2 days. The sky was clear, no wind, just the rustle of yellow leaves and my boots crunching over dry twigs. About 8 miles in, I reached the outpost. The structure was still intact, though the roof sagged and the windows were boarded. But something about it felt wrong. Not abandoned. Watched. Inside was dusty but not empty. Someone had been there. Fresh footprints in the dirt, a can of beans recently opened, and a blanket that didn't look like it had been there long. I thought maybe a hiker had squatted there, so I called out. No answer. I explored the nearby area, found nothing, and set up my own camp a few yards away. That night, I built a fire, ate, and wrote in my journal. Around midnight, I heard it. Something moving through the trees, not crashing. Like a deer, slow, deliberate. I called out again. Nothing. I aimed my flashlight. Just trees. But then I noticed the sounds weren't random. They circled me. Something was walking around the camp, just beyond the tree line. I stood up. The fire popped loudly, and from the darkness came a voice. Hello? Can you help me? It was a woman's voice. Software scared, but too flat. Like someone trying to sound scared. I stepped closer to the trees and said, Where are you? Silence. Then same voice, but this time directly behind me. Help me. I turned, shining the light. Nothing. My fire went out instantly, as if someone had poured water on it. I dropped the flashlight. When I picked it up, a figure stood across the trail, pale, naked, bent at the joints, eyes glowing faint yellow in the beam. It mimicked my stance, tilted its head in perfect sync with mine. Then it said, in my exact voice, Help me. I grabbed my pack and ran. Didn't sleep. Just sat in the dark with a knife in hand. When morning came, I packed everything and started hiking back. But something was off. The trail had changed. Markers were gone. The terrain felt different. I should have been able to retrace my steps, but every ridge looked unfamiliar. After hours of walking, I found the same outpost again. No matter which direction I took, I ended up back at the same spot. At sunset, I gave up and stayed near the outpost. I tried calling for help, no service. I climbed onto the roof for a better view. That's when I saw it again. The pale thing, standing in the clearing, watching me. Then, another one appeared. And another. 4 of them. All the same shape. All mimicking my every movement. I yelled. One yelled back, same voice, same pitch. I climbed down and locked myself inside the outpost. Night fell hard. No moon. No sound. Just the soft scratching at the walls. Not claws, fingernails. At midnight, a window broke. I screamed and lit my emergency flare. Red light bathed the cabin, and I saw dozens of them, faces pressed against the cracks in the boards, all wearing my face, all whispering in unison, "Let us in." we're cold. The next morning, I was found by a search team. I had wandered to the edge of the forest, dehydrated, barefoot, scratched all over. I didn't remember walking. They said I'd been missing for 3 days. My boots were never found. Neither was my pack. But one ranger showed me something. On the outpost wall, scratched into the wood, were the words, "He won't stop coming back." The scratches were made with fingernails, some still embedded in the grain. I never went back, but sometimes I dream of the forest, and in the dream, I'm the one mimicking. I move like a puppet. I wear someone else's face, and when I speak, it's not my voice anymore. Moral lesson. In some places, the forest doesn't echo your voice. It steals it, and then sends something else back in your place. It started with a sound I'll never forget. Like a man trying to mimic a coyote, but failing just enough to make your skin crawl. I was camping alone in the high desert of northern Arizona, not far from the Navajo Nation lands, in a place my cousin begged me never to visit after dark. The land was red, dry, scattered with shrubs and ancient rocks that hummed with silence. I had parked my truck along a dirt road that faded into nothing, pulled out my gear, and set up camp as the sun went down behind the rust-colored hills. There wasn't supposed to be anyone else for miles. The nearest house was over 20 miles away, and I didn't even have cell service. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound again. Closer this time, less like a coyote and more like a person screaming into the wind. My flashlight flickered when I turned it on, like the batteries had suddenly dropped to zero. I unzipped the tent and stepped out into the freezing silence, my breath clouding in front of me. Then I saw it, something tall and thin, standing just at the edge of the sagebrush. It wasn't moving, not even swaying. I whispered, "Hello?" And the thing crouched fast, like a spider collapsing in on itself, and then vanished behind the scrub. I backed toward the tent, but then I heard a voice behind me, a perfect copy of my own voice saying, "Stay here. Don't move." I spun around. No one. Just cold air and moonlight. I bolted into the truck and locked the doors. When morning came, I found bare human footprints all around the tent. Bare, but with elongated toes and the heel off-center like a deformed animal trying to walk like a man. That was the first time I truly believed in the Skinwalker stories my grandfather used to whisper after too much whiskey. The second story came from a girl I dated briefly in Flagstaff. Her uncle had a sheep ranch that bordered tribal land, and one winter she invited me to spend Christmas with her family. Her uncle was a quiet man, hard to read, but his dogs were the ones who really spoke volumes. They refused to go out after dark. They'd sit by the door, stiff as statues, ears pinned back, like they were listening to something no one else could hear. One night, after a family dinner, I stepped outside for a smoke and saw something moving by the tree line. It was low to the ground, crawling, but way too fast, and with a shape that didn't make sense. Then it stood up, fully upright, like a man. But it was pitch black and unnaturally thin. I called for her uncle and pointed, and he didn't even hesitate. He went inside, grabbed a double-barrel shotgun and salt, and walked out like it wasn't the first time. He shot once into the trees, and the thing let out a sound I still hear in my sleep. A screech, like metal being bent by screaming. The next morning, we found one of the sheep torn open, not eaten, just shredded. Her uncle made us leave 2 days early. On the way back, she told me her cousin disappeared out there 5 years ago, and when they found her body a month later, she had no eyes, no tongue, and her fingers were fused together like hooves. I wanted to pretend it was just a coyote or a bear, but deep down I knew. The third story is the worst, and it didn't happen to me. It happened to my brother. He was stationed at a remote ranger post in New Mexico, doing seasonal fire-watch duty. For 6 weeks, he was alone in a tall metal tower surrounded by dense forest with just a radio, some emergency gear, and a generator. We talked once every few days, and at first he said everything was fine. But then he stopped calling. When I finally reached the ranger office, they said he'd gone quiet for over a week, and they were sending someone to check. I drove 7 hours that night to get there. The tower was still standing, the truck was still parked beneath it, and the generator was running, but the cabin at the top was empty. No sign of a struggle, no blood, no note. Just his boots sitting neatly by the cot and a mirror shattered on the wall. They launched a search. For 3 days, they found nothing, until someone reported a man walking naked along a highway 50 miles south, muttering in Navajo. When they brought him in, it wasn't my brother, but he was wearing my brother's firewatch jacket. He wouldn't answer questions, just kept repeating the same phrase over and over, in a voice too deep for his frame. The translator said it meant, "The one who wears your skin walks now."